January 330 BC. The mountain pass is silent. Snow covers the Zagros peaks. The temperature has dropped below freezing. And somewhere in the darkness of a narrow gorge, 40,000 Persian warriors are waiting. They have built walls across the pass. They have positioned archers on every cliff above. They have set up catapults, traps, and rolling boulders. They have done everything a military mind can do to turn a mountain into a death machine. And they are right to do it, because coming toward them is the man who has never lost a battle in his life. The man who shattered the Persian Empire at Gaugamela 4 months earlier. The man who has conquered everything from Greece to the heart of Persia. The man whose name alone is enough to make enemy soldiers abandon their positions and run. But not these soldiers. Not here. Not at the Persian Gate. Because Ariobarzanes, the satrap of Persis, has made a decision. He will not run. He will not surrender. He will not send ambassadors with gifts and promises. He will stand in this pass with 40,000 men, and he will do what no one else in the known world has managed to do. He will stop Alexander the Great. And for 3 days, for 3 bloody, catastrophic days, he succeeds. But let's go back 4 months. Because this story doesn't begin in a mountain pass. It begins with the greatest military victory in the ancient world, and the one decision that came after it that almost destroyed everything. It is October 331 BC. The dust of Gaugamela is still settling. King Darius III of Persia, the ruler of the largest empire the world has ever seen, has fled the battlefield for the 2nd time in 3 years. His army of 250,000 warriors has been shattered by 47,000 Macedonians. His generals are dead or captured. His empire is collapsing. And Alexander the Great is 25 years old. He marches south. His target is Persepolis, the capital of capitals, the city where the Persian kings have ruled for 200 years, the city that holds more gold, more silver, more accumulated wealth than anywhere else on earth. Ancient sources estimate the treasury at Persepolis contained 120,000 talents of silver. To put that in context, that is enough money to pay every single soldier in Alexander's army for 200 years. And between Alexander and that treasure stands one man, Ariobarzanes. Here's what you need to understand about Ariobarzanes. He is not a desperate last defender with nothing left to fight for. He is one of the most capable military minds in the Persian Empire. He is the satrap, the governor, of Persis, the Persian heartland. This is his territory. He knows every mountain, every pass, every river crossing between here and Persepolis, and he has chosen his ground with perfect intelligence. The Persian Gate. In Persian, it is called the Tangi Marin, a narrow gorge cut through the Zagros Mountains. The pass is barely wide enough for soldiers to walk 4 abreast. On either side, cliffs rise hundreds of meters straight up. There is no way around it. There is no alternative route on any map Alexander possesses. If you want to reach Persepolis from the north, you go through the Persian Gate, or you don't go at all. Ariobarzanes has somewhere between 25,000 and 40,000 men. Ancient sources disagree on the exact number, but what they agree on is this. He has enough. He has more than enough. He has positioned archers on every cliff above the pass. He has built stone walls across the gorge floor to funnel attackers into killing zones. He has preloaded boulders on the cliff ledges, ready to roll down onto any army foolish enough to enter. He has set traps in the narrow spaces. He has created what military engineers would call a perfect defensive position. It is, in every sense, impassable. Alexander doesn't believe that. He should. It is January 330 BC. Alexander does something he almost never does. He doesn't scout thoroughly. He doesn't wait for full intelligence reports. He has been moving fast, impossibly fast, since Gaugamela. Speed has been his weapon. He has been outrunning the ability of Persian resistance to form and consolidate. He has been winning battles before his enemies finish organizing to fight them. He looks at the Persian Gate. He calculates. He decides. He sends his forces in. What happens next is the closest thing to a catastrophe in Alexander's entire military career. The Macedonian phalanx enters the gorge. The famous sarissas, those 18-foot pikes that have been unstoppable on every open battlefield from Greece to Mesopotamia, are suddenly useless. The pass is too narrow to form a proper formation. The men are crammed together. They cannot maneuver. They cannot use the tactics that have made them unbeatable. Then, Ariobarzanes springs the trap. Archers open fire from both cliff faces simultaneously. The gorge turns into a shooting gallery. Arrows fall not just from ahead, but from above and from both sides at once. There is no direction to advance into that isn't also a direction of incoming fire. Men fall. Men scream. Men pile into each other, trying to retreat in a space too narrow to turn around. Then come the boulders. Ariobarzanes' men have spent weeks carefully positioning massive rocks on the cliff ledges directly above the pass. On a signal, they push them. The rocks fall, gain speed, and hit the Macedonian column from directly above. Not from a front, where shields offer protection. From above, where there is no protection. Where armor is irrelevant. Where the best soldier in the world and the worst are equally helpless. Men are crushed. Men are buried under rockfall. The screaming echoes off the stone walls and comes back amplified, disorienting, making the chaos feel even larger than it is. Alexander himself is forced back. He retreats. Let that land for a moment. Because in 15 years of continuous warfare, from the moment he took the throne at 20 years old to this moment, Alexander has never had to retreat from a battlefield. He has faced 250,000 Persians and carved through them. He has besieged island fortresses and built roads through the sea. He has fought Scythian horse archers on the edge of the known world and beaten them with improvised tactics. And a narrow mountain pass has just driven him back. The Macedonian losses at the Persian Gate in this first assault are significant. Ancient sources are vague about exact numbers, but they are unanimous that they are serious. These are not skirmish casualties. These are the bodies of elite warriors who marched from Greece to the heart of Persia and were cut down not by an open battle they could have won, but by terrain and positioning they could not overcome. Alexander sets up camp. He thinks. He is furious, but he is not panicked. Because Alexander the Great has a quality that is rarer than his tactical genius, rarer than his physical courage, rarer even than his uncanny ability to read a battlefield. He can look at a defeat and learn from it. And here is what he learns. You cannot fight Ariobarzanes at the Persian Gate on Ariobarzanes' terms. The terrain has made the Persian commanders' inferior numbers irrelevant. As long as Alexander attacks where his enemy wants him to attack, he will lose. Every time. So he makes a decision. He will not attack where his enemy is waiting. He will attack where his enemy doesn't exist. Here is the tactical problem that Alexander now faces. He cannot go through the pass. He has just proved that. He cannot go around it, because he doesn't know of another route. He cannot wait Ariobarzanes out, because time is working against him. Every day he sits outside the Persian Gate is a day Persepolis is moving its treasury, building its defenses, and receiving reinforcements. Every day he waits is a day the Persian Empire has to reorganize around his stalled advance. He cannot besiege a mountain. He needs another way. Then, and the ancient sources disagree on who exactly this person was, but the broad shape of the story is consistent. A prisoner is brought to Alexander. Some accounts say he was a shepherd. Some say he was a local guide. Some say he was a man who had worked in the mountains around the Persian Gate and knew them the way you only know terrain you have lived in your entire life. He tells Alexander there is another path, not a road, not a route on any military map, a narrow, brutal mountain track that winds through the higher peaks around the pass, a path that comes out, after a climb through snow and freezing temperatures in the middle of the night, directly behind Ariobarzanes' position, a path that turns the Impassable Gate from a defensive masterpiece into a trap for the wrong side. Alexander asks one question. How long will it take? The answer, one night. Alexander smiles. He plans. What Alexander designs next is, according to military historians who have studied it for 2,000 years, one of the most elegant tactical solutions in ancient warfare. He divides his forces. Craterus, one of his most trusted generals, takes a substantial portion of the army and stays at the main camp facing the Persian Gate. His orders are specific. Make noise. Light fires. Move around. Make Ariobarzanes believe that Alexander's entire army is still camped in front of the pass. Do not attack. Do not provoke. Just exist loudly enough that the Persians keep their eyes forward. Then Alexander takes his finest troops, his companion cavalry, his hypaspists, his most elite infantry, and he disappears into the mountains. At night, in January, in the Zagros. Think about what that means. These are soldiers in armor, carrying weapons, moving through snow, in freezing temperatures, across terrain that even the locals find challenging in daylight. They are moving in darkness, in silence, because if a single Persian scout hears them, the plan collapses, the element of surprise is gone, and Ariobarzanes simply repositions to cover the mountain path as well. The march takes most of the night. Ancient sources describe soldiers stumbling on rocks, slipping on ice, grabbing each other in the darkness to stay on the path. Some of them have marched from Greece. Some of them have crossed deserts and mountain ranges and survived battles that would have destroyed any other army in the ancient world. They are among the most hardened soldiers in history, and the cold is still brutal. But they don't stop, because Alexander is at the front. That is not a metaphor and not a legend. In every battle, in every march, in every dangerous moment, Alexander is at the front. His men know that whatever they are suffering, the man who could be in a warm tent back at camp is suffering it with them. That knowledge is worth 10,000 reinforcements. They move through the night, and sometime before dawn, cold, exhausted, in pain, they reach the position above Ariobarzanes' camp. This is the moment. The Persian soldiers of the Persian Gate are watching the front. They are watching the fires of Alexander's camp. They are watching the movement of Macedonian soldiers who are deliberately making themselves visible. They are waiting for another frontal assault that they know will fail just like the first one. They are comfortable. They are confident. They are looking in exactly the wrong direction. At dawn, Alexander gives the signal. From above and behind the Persian position, the Macedonian attack begins. Alexander's elite troops pour down from the heights, hitting the Persian rearguard before they can form any defensive posture. The shock is total. Warriors who went to sleep knowing they were safely positioned behind impassable terrain wake up to find the enemy inside their camp. Simultaneously, because Alexander's timing is perfect, Craterus receives the signal from the mountain above and launches the frontal assault. After days of sitting still, his forces charge the Persian Gate directly. Ariobarzanes' men are now being attacked from both directions at once. From the front by Craterus, from the rear by Alexander. In a narrow gorge where there is nowhere to maneuver, nowhere to redirect forces, nowhere to fall back to. The trap that was built to destroy Alexander has become the trap that destroys the defenders. The Persian position collapses. What happens to individual soldiers in that gorge is not glorious. It is not epic. It is the brutal physics of a closed space filled with panicking men under simultaneous attack from two sides. The archers who were positioned on the cliffs to shoot down into the pass now find Macedonian soldiers climbing toward them from behind. The men who controlled the boulder positions are overrun. The stone walls that block the pass are now obstacles that prevent the Persians from running. Ariobarzanes tries to break out. He takes what men he can and attempts to flee south toward Persepolis. He rides hard. He has to reach the city, regroup, and organize the next line of defense. He arrives at the gates of Persepolis and hammers on them. The gates don't open. The city's own defenders, knowing that the Macedonian army is hours behind and that opening the gates means letting a defeated, desperate army inside followed immediately by Alexander, make the decision to close them. They save the city by locking out its supposed defender. Ariobarzanes is left outside the walls of the city he fought to protect, with no army, no allies, and nowhere to go. He dies in the hills, fighting to the last, according to most accounts. Some sources say he was killed in a final skirmish. Others say he simply vanished. But what is certain is this: he never surrendered, and Alexander rides into Persepolis. The treasury is intact. 120,000 talents of silver. 2 centuries of accumulated Persian imperial wealth. The gold, the jewels, the ceremonial objects, the administrative records of an empire that stretched from Egypt to India. All of it still there, because Alexander moved fast enough that no one had time to move it. It takes 20,000 mules and 5,000 camels to carry it all away. For a brief moment, it seems like the story ends in pure triumph. Alexander has cracked the Impassable Gate. He has taken the greatest treasury in the world. He has effectively ended the Persian Empire as a political entity. Darius is a fugitive. The Achaemenid dynasty that ruled for 200 years is finished. But then something happens. Something that military historians, archaeologists, and scholars have been arguing about for 2,000 years and still cannot agree on. Persepolis burns. The greatest palace complex in the ancient world. The Apadana, where Persian kings received tribute from 40 nations. The Hall of 100 Columns. The throne room. The royal archives. The artwork. The inscriptions. The ceremonial objects that represented the height of Persian civilization. All of it ash. Was it deliberate? Alexander's own officers say there was a banquet. That wine was flowing. That an Athenian woman named Thais, the companion of one of his generals, stood up and suggested that burning Persepolis was the proper revenge for the burning of Athens by Xerxes 150 years earlier. That Alexander, drunk, lit the first torch. That his companions followed. That version makes Alexander a man who let a moment of drunken revenge destroy something irreplaceable. But there is another version, that the burning was calculated, that it was a political message, proof that the Persian Empire was definitively over, that the old order was not coming back, that anyone still loyal to Darius should let go of that loyalty, because there was nothing left to be loyal to. That version makes Alexander a man who made a cold strategic decision and let his companions blame the wine. We don't know which is true. We will never know. And maybe that is appropriate, because Alexander the Great is never a simple man. Not in victory, not in defeat, not in the decisions that come after battles. He is the man who turned a military catastrophe at the Persian Gate into one of his greatest tactical achievements. And he is also the man who may have stood watching the most magnificent palace in the ancient world burn to the ground and either wept or smiled. History remembers the ash, not the reason. Here is what the Battle of the Persian Gate actually decided. In the short term, it broke the last organized resistance to Alexander's conquest of Persia. Ariobarzanes was the only Persian commander after Gaugamela who chose to fight rather than submit. His death and the fall of the pass removed the last credible military option for a Persian counterattack. In the medium term, it gave Alexander the treasury that funded the rest of his campaigns. Without those 120,000 talents, there is no invasion of Central Asia. There is no march to India. There is no attempt to reach the edge of the known world. The gold from Persepolis is what pays for everything that comes after. In the long term, the burning of Persepolis does something that no battle could have done. It closes the door. It makes the conquest irreversible. Before Persepolis burns, there is still, theoretically, a world in which Darius rebuilds, in which Persian nobles rally, in which the Achaemenid dynasty reconstitutes itself around a new king. After Persepolis burns, that world is impossible. The symbolic center of Persian civilization is gone. You cannot restore an empire when its throne room is charcoal. And then there is what the Persian Gate teaches us about Alexander himself. He failed. He was driven back. He lost soldiers in a gorge because he moved without sufficient intelligence and paid for it in blood. And then, instead of trying the same attack again with more men or better equipment, he looked for a completely different solution. He found a local with local knowledge. He trusted that knowledge. He planned a night march through freezing mountains that most commanders would have considered too risky to attempt. He personally led it, and he executed it with perfect timing. That is what his enemies could never prepare for. Not his courage. Many men are courageous. Not his aggression. Many commanders are aggressive. It was this, the ability to fail, to absorb the failure, to learn from it in hours rather than days, and to come back with a solution that no one expected. Every time his enemies thought they understood him, he changed. The Persian Gate is perhaps the clearest example of that quality in his entire campaign, because the man who walked away from that first defeat was, tactically speaking, different from the man who entered the pass. He learned from Ariobarzanes. He used what he learned, and Ariobarzanes, one of the best defensive commanders of his era, a man who genuinely managed to stop Alexander the Great for 3 days, died in the hills outside Persepolis knowing that the lesson had been learned against him. Here is the thing that stays with me about the Persian Gate. Ariobarzanes knew he was going to lose. Not at the pass. At the pass, he was winning. But he knew that even if he held the Persian Gate forever, Alexander controlled everything else. Darius had fled. The empire was broken. The treasury was going to fall regardless. The most Ariobarzanes could do was buy time, and he bought exactly 3 days of it before the night march made even that impossible. So why did he fight? You could say loyalty. He was the satrap of Persis. The Persian heartland was his responsibility, his honor, his identity. Running wasn't an option he could live with. You could say calculation. Maybe he thought 3 days was enough time for something to change, for Darius to return, for reinforcements to arrive, for some piece of fortune to fall his way. Or you could say he fought because there was simply nothing else he knew how to do. He was a soldier. He had a position. He defended it. And when the position fell, he died in the hills without surrendering, which is the only thing a man like Ariobarzanes could do and still be himself. He failed, and he was magnificent in the failing. And Alexander, who broke him, who outthought him, who marched through the mountains in January to render his courage irrelevant. Alexander went on to burn the city Ariobarzanes fought to protect. History doesn't give us clean heroes and clean villains. It gives us men making impossible choices under impossible circumstances. Ariobarzanes chose to stand. Alexander chose to climb. And Persepolis chose to burn. The Persian Gate is, today, a gorge in the Zagros Mountains of Iran. Tourists visit it. Archaeologists study the remains of the stone walls. Local guides point to the cliffs above and tell you where the archers stood. The mountains look exactly the same as they did in January 330 BC. They have forgotten the snow. They have forgotten the screaming. They have forgotten the bodies in the gorge and the night march, and the man who stood at the gates of Persepolis waiting for them to open. But we haven't forgotten him. And the question that matters, the one that the Persian Gate forces us to answer about ourselves, is not whether Alexander was right to do what he did. The question is, if you were Ariobarzanes, would you have held a pass? Knowing you would fail, knowing the city would fall anyway, knowing the treasury would be taken and the palace would burn, knowing your name would become a footnote in the history of the man who defeated you. Would you have held a pass?